We got work to do.
Welcome to Highway to Hell, a supernatural podcast. I'm Christine.
And I'm Kristen.
And today we're talking about Season 6, Episode 14, Mannequin 3, The Reckoning. Which sounds pretty serious.
Yeah, it does.
I just pulled the description from Supernatural Wiki, and it says, Dean and Sam investigate a ghost that seems to be able to move across county lines and possess dummies. Yeah.
And we did okay, so we did talk a little bit about this because just that's a really, really strange description. Why are we being super specific about this ghost who can move across county lines? It's just strange. Just really, like, can they really not?
Right, like why are we specifically talking about county lines?
Exactly.
And we know, like, I think we've seen that, ghosts are generally tied to something specific, like a house or an object or something like that. So we know they can't really move around, but yeah, it's a funny way to describe that. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it was directed by, okay, I'm going to take another stab at this name. Where did it go? Okay. Jano Schwark. That's my estimation. We did find out he's French, so that feels kind of, more spot
Correct.
on. Yeah. And he goes on to direct one episode over the next 4 seasons. So he's got this one in season 6, and then another one in season 7, Adventures in Babysitting in season 8, LARP and the Real Girl, season 9, Thin Man, and season 10, Paper Moon. So, I liked the directing in this one. There were some differences that kind of stood out to me. But yeah. It's gonna be good.
Yes. I thought it was good too. Although once we get talking about the actual episode, I am remembering now I do have one point of contention.
I wonder if it's the same one that I have. We're gonna poke holes in it.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Yep, we are. Okay, cool.
Sorry.
I'm looking forward to seeing what yours is.
Okay, great. And the episode aired February 18th, 2011. Oh, sorry. And it was written by Eric Carmelo and Nicole Snyder, who I think are also new.
We've had one by them, I think. At least Nicole Snyder. I think I remember that name.
I was going to say her name sounds familiar, but not Eric Carmelo. So maybe he's new.
Yeah.
And let me see. We had one song, Love Hurts by Nazareth, which plays during the scene that squirrely guy, Johnny, goes home to his apartment.
It's a good song.
Yeah, it's a good song. There isn't a whole lot to say about it. Let me see. It was released in 1961. So it's vintage. But there isn't a whole lot of information about it. I looked up the Wikipedia and not a whole lot of history. They just I think there were a lot of different versions of it that were made afterward. And so it goes on to discuss all of the different versions and the different people who covered it. But it's a good one.
Yeah, it makes me think, or I always think of Detroit Rock City when I hear it.
Oh, yeah. That's a good
Yeah.
movie.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
So that's kind of the cut and dry info. I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to add about the episode before we get started.
Yeah, no, I don't. Um, this one's just in general, this one's a little bit, I wasn't sure if I remembered really, really liking it or what. And I remember like last week when we briefly talked about it, um, I remember having a sense that it was kind of like yellow fever to me. And
Oh,
so,
and now I can see why.
yes. Yeah, I know now why. I
That is so
remembered it that
interesting that
way.
you like, yeah, that you connected them in some way. Dang. Ugh.
Yeah. So I don't know how you feel about it being that way and being kind of dark in that sense cuz I mean,
hmm
it's just so messed up. And it also, the whole premise reminds me of Stir of Echoes, which I think I may have talked about like a long long time ago,
Oh, what is
because
that?
it's a movie from like the 1990s, and I remember they had, it's the first time I ever heard Ex-Girlfriend by No Doubt, because
Ooh,
I mean, I don't think that they made that song for the movie, but it was on their soundtrack and everything. Um and it's with Kevin Bacon, and he's living in this like haunted ass house, and like spoilers, but we discover that the ghost haunting them was like killed in a very similar way as the girl in this episode. Like
interesting.
guys kind of like, being just really gross, and yeah,
hmm
and then hiding, covering it up.
Got it. That's interesting. I don't really know how I felt about it. I didn't love it overall. Um,
Mhm.
it kind of just ended up feeling like an episode that didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and minus the stuff with Lisa and Dean and Ben.
Yes.
That was for me by far the best part of the whole thing. And I liked a lot of the acting. The woman who played Rose's sister, Isabel, I liked her. Um,
Mhm.
but even while I was watching the episode, John was sitting there and was just kind of like on his phone and kind of like half watching. And when it got to some of those parts where they were explaining what had happened to Rose, he looked up from his phone and he was like, do people actually do that?
Oh. Yeah, like prank like that? Oh my god.
Do shitty people like this even exist? Like, I don't know. It's so awful.
If so, I don't wanna know. It's just, yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, fuck them. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of how I felt about it, in general. Um, it's just an icky, sad
Mhm.
plot there.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, well, if we don't have anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and get into it. So we get our episode recap. We have, during the then segment, flashbacks of Dean with Lisa and Ben and living his happy life. And talking over those flashbacks are Sam and Bobby talking about how, he got to have a taste of that normal life. And Bobby said that's the happiest he's ever seen a hunter. And then we get the flashback of Dean when he had been turned into a vampire and he went to Lisa and Ben's and he pushed Ben and ran away. And then Lisa calling him and telling him that she and Ben just can't be in this with him, basically breaking up with him completely.
Yeah.
and Dean getting help from death to get Sam's soul back. Let me see. Oh, and then Dean explaining to Sam about his soul, that he can't remember the things that happened to him when he was soulless, or bad things will happen. And then the flashback just to the end of the last episode where Sam collapsed and we saw inside his head and it was him burning in hell. Yeah, all kinds of intense. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that.
No, just like so much that's happened. And Lisa, like what? Oh my God, we're
Yeah.
are we finally gonna see her again? But also Dean, like it just the whole thing's completely fucked up. Like I was just yelling, like, oh God, super angst.
Yeah, it is. It's super intense and I was looking forward to it too. You know, they've been playing phone tag or like not for so long and ugh, I wanted something else to happen there. So, thankfully, we pick up right where we left off. Sam is on the floor and Dean is leaning over him, trying to wake him up and calling his name. And then suddenly, Sam just opens his eyes, but in his eyes, we see like a little flame and it just slowly disappears as he like comes to. And that was a cool effect. There were some pretty cool effects in this episode. I will say that.
Yeah, and I was a little bit confused with that at first because I was like, can Dean see that, or is that just like a metaphorical representation of like what's going on with Sam?
Right. I don't know.
Because it
Good
made me think
question.
like, oh shit, like did something awaken in Sam or something like that? But perhaps not. I don't, we didn't get any sort of inkling to that.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. And it made me wonder if, his quick trip in hell like that, I don't know if like that's how it happens, if that's how the wall in his head gets broken down, like he just has to I don't know, that'll happen every now and then until it's like he is there too long and, he's gone too far.
Right. Yeah. Is he going to be going in and out of that like state?
Right. I don't know. So he wakes up and immediately Dean's like, we got to get the hell out of here. So he grabs him and they leave. And then we cut to there's a caption at the bottom. It says Great Falls Junior College in, I don't know, I think it's Paterson, New Jersey. And inside the junior college, there's a janitor cleaning up a classroom that's like a science classroom, a lab. And there's a mannequin that's like an anatomy dummy. It's got the parts for muscles, eyes, etc. And the janitor's cleaning up, and when he's not looking, the mannequin disappears off its hook. So behind him, we just see this empty hook kind of dangling, and that was kind of cool.
Yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah, totally. And then the janitor's cleaning, and he sees some blood drip onto the ground, and the camera looks at him, and there's this long cut that's been made on his forehead. And he breathes out, and we can see his breath, so we can tell that it's cold. And then he hears something fall off of a table and turns around and he sees that the anatomy dummy is alive and it like smiles at him and then it fucking kills him and returns to its hook. So
S
creepy.
it was so creepy. You know, it was just also just a I thought an interesting touch because I mean, I think first off, I think this is like CGI right here, that they used for the mannequin.
Right. It's like straight up CGI.
Yeah, which did was one of those moments where I was like, "Oh, like wait a second, what did I just see?" Cuz we never use CGI like that. So I truly was just expecting uh like just a mannequin just with a blank face or something. I don't know, something silly like that. So,
Yeah, I didn't even think they were going to show it. Like I think I was expecting like, we see it all off camera. Like suddenly there's just this like mannequin behind it, but then it like cuts away and he's like screaming or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think I would have expected the same thing as well. That makes more sense to me. Um,
But I'm
but
with you. I was really surprised that we saw it move.
yeah. The other thing that I wanted to mention was and the thing that I really did not like about this episode as far as the directing goes was the fact that it didn't open with this scene.
Oh, you're so right.
Like
Why wouldn't it
I
do that as like the cold open?
cuz I think they were trying to do something where it's the episode starts immediately after the Sam collapsing.
Sure. Yeah.
But that didn't work for me. Like, I don't need to see him suddenly wake up and be like, "Oh my god, what's going on with me?" Like I would have much rather like I didn't need to see all of that. We could have just
Well,
jumped.
and like thinking about it, they could have like swapped those scenes. Like had the janitor scene and the mannequin scene first, and then after the credits show up where Sam wakes up because then the next scene after this is Sam and Dean talking about it. So like why couldn't it have just led right into that?
You're exactly. Exactly.
That's so
So,
interesting. I didn't even think about that, and you're totally right.
it was just so weird. It didn't make
Yeah.
any sense to me. So that was my, apart from just like the ickiness of like the plot and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that was my big thing about this episode that
Yeah,
bothered me. But
I get that. So yeah, so here's the scene that could have led straight from Sam waking up. So he and Dean are kind of outside. It looks like Dean went to go, I don't know, get some food at a little food stand or something. And he comes back over to Sam, and his head clearly still hurts. He's like kind of pinching his nose and like shaking his head. And Dean says, how I think he says something like, "How long were you gone?" And Sam tells him that he felt like he was gone, it was like a week.
man,
So
that's
even though he was
crazy.
out for like 3 minutes, he was in hell for a week. Shitty.
Yeah, I can't imagine what that would feel like. And it's so strange because it's really just his mind.
I don't
So,
know. But
you
is
know,
it? I don't know. Is he like his. I, I don't get it. But that
yeah,
sucks.
yeah.
And then Dean kind of starts lecturing him about how he could have died. He's like, basically, see, I told you. Um, so he doesn't want Sam to try and remember his past anymore from when he didn't have a soul. And Sam kind of tries to argue, but Dean just shuts it down and says, this isn't a debate. Your life is on the line. So Sam reluctantly agrees to leave the past in the past. And then to distract him, Dean pulls out a newspaper and tells him he has a job. And he tells Sam about the case of that janitor who died in the school, but all of the doors were locked. Everything was locked down. Um, and it just seems really fishy. So they decide to go. And this is when Dean makes the Snooky joke.
Um he said, where are we off to? And Dean's like, Patterson, New Jersey. Hey, maybe we'll have a Snooki sighting. And then Sam goes, what's a Snooki? Oh, which feels like such a dated quote now or, joke.
Totally.
And then Dean says, that's a good question. And we were briefly talking about this right before the episode or right before we started recording because apparently when the episode aired, Snicky tweeted about the mention and she tweeted, Supernatural gave me a shout out. I love that show. Hashtag win.
Hashtag win.
And I didn't mention this to you before, Christine, but I think I had mentioned it to you like a long time ago when we first started talking about Supernatural as a show,
Mhm.
but she actually appears later on the show in
That's
season
ringing a
9.
weird bell. Oh my god.
So I can't wait to see her.
Oh my god. And they have a Snooki sighting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they get a little snook. Mhm.
So Sam and Dean get dressed up as investigators and go to the science lab at the junior college. And Dean's kind of fucking around with the anatomy dummy and making jokes, and it's pretty funny. Um,
Yeah.
and then he's suddenly like, "Do you smell sulfur?" And Sam's like, "We're in a science lab." And he's like, "Oh yeah, duh." Um, but then Dean gets a call and he picks up his phone and he sees that it's Lisa. And there's clearly an internal struggle. He's deciding whether or not to answer it, but he ignores the call. And Sam sees it and gives him a hard time about it. He's like, "Why don't you just talk to her?"
Yeah, that's insane to me. Like,
Why would he ignore that call?
because I know that he, like, Lisa had called him and was like, I don't even come back and this and that, but I didn't realize that, like, Dean was also not wanting to talk to her.
Me either.
Like an idiot.
Idiot. Yeah, I had no idea either, and I thought for sure like if she called, he would pick up.
Yeah. What the hell? And also, like, the reason you left was because she was in danger. So, like, she could be in danger right now, Dean.
Dummy.
Oh, it just made me so mad.
Yeah, it was a surprise to me too. I don't know. Okay, so he's being an idiot. Um, and Sam kind of lets it go and he pulls out the EMF reader and it's going crazy around the anatomy dummy. And then they look up and notice that there's a camera in the classroom. So they go into the security room and check out the security footage, and they see a video of the janitor cleaning. And then suddenly, of course, the video cuts out. And when it starts back up again, he's dead on the ground, and it doesn't look like anything else has moved. So they split up, and Sam talks to the janitor's girlfriend, and he tells Dean that he didn't get anything about him. He was squeaky clean. I guess gave to charities, all that good stuff. Went to church. Uh, and Dean had looked into the history of the building and the land and didn't find anything weird about that either. So they've got Butkus.
Hmm.
Then we switch over to it looks like a clothing factory. There are a bunch of stations with sewing machines and a lot of mannequins around for fitting the clothing and like parts of mannequins. There's like a bin just full of like arms and legs and stuff. And the security guard walks through the room and he hears something. And he turns around and one of the mannequins is like suddenly right behind him.
Oh my God. That's like your worst nightmare.
I know. It's like, oh shit. Um, and then he's kind of like, haha, okay, who's there? And he breathes out, and we can see his breath, so we know it's cold again in the room. And he turns around again, and there's a second mannequin right behind him, and it turns its head and looks at him. And then we see, so this is way more CGI. There's like, it's like fucking moving. We see it has a pair of scissors in its mannequin hand, and it like raises the scissors and slices a cut into his forehead. And then he kind of like stumbles, and another mannequin pulls out like a long pipe and stabs him in the stomach with it, and he dies. And this was also kind of a weird scene. I don't know if you noticed this, but it kind of stood out because he's dead and laying on the floor, and there are some like mannequin parts laying around him. and the camera is really slowly panning out with this like kind of
Yes.
slow, creepy music, and there's like not a whole lot happening for this really long scene.
Yeah, it was I did notice that as well, and I was like, "Are they trying to show us that the mannequin, like, disassembled itself to hide what it did or
What
something?"
are we
Like,
looking at?
yeah, I the same exact thing I questioned.
Okay, okay. I'm glad you were there because I don't know, it's just kinda like, okay, we can move on now.
Yeah.
So, Sam and Dean, again, as investigators, are on the scene in the clothing factory. And Sam has the EMF reader out, and it's again just going wild around the mannequin parts, that bin full of parts. And so then some, like Sam puts two and two together, and he points out that the reader goes off around the dummies and theorizes that ghosts could possess the dummies. He's like, they possess humans, so why not these? But, Dean points out the problem is that this factory is 3 towns away from the school where the janitor was killed. So, how would a ghost be able to move that far? Good point. I don't, it's a mystery. So, Sam finds that a seamstress named Rose Brown went missing over a year ago from the clothing factory where she worked. And she was last seen at the factory. So they automatically think, okay, this is a vengeful spirit, and decide to visit Rose's sister. Then Lisa calls again, and Sam straight up tells Dean to answer the phone. He's like, Answer it."
Mhm.
Stupid.
Yeah. Sam's the only smart one
I
here.
know. What the heck? So Dean gets up and answers the phone, and he answers it like Lisa, like he thinks it's Lisa on the other end, but it's Ben. And Ben's freaking out. He says something is wrong with Lisa. She won't come out of her room and the door is locked and she barely gets out of bed. She won't talk to Ben. She's not eating and it's really bad. And he begs Dean to come and help. And then outside as they're leaving, like Dean's not, he's off the phone and he's reluctant. He's like, I don't know, I can't just drop this and leave. And Sam's like, yes, you can. You have to go right now. Uh,
Yeah.
so thankfully, Sam convinces him and he gets in the Impala and drives off to go to Lisa's. So Sam goes to talk to Rose's sister. Her name is Isabel. And she tells him that she and Rose were very close. She says that her sister was kind, but people gave her a hard time because she was shy and awkward. Um, Isabel said that she felt like she was always defending Rose, but she says it went both ways, and Rose did more for her than anyone else ever could. Sam looks through a picture album that Isabel has and sees the uh, company Christmas party photo from the factory. And in the picture are the two janitors from the school and the factory who died. Um, so Sam finds out from Isabel that the janitor who had worked at the school used to work at the factory and he quit his job there right after Rose went missing. So that's fishy. Um,
Yeah.
they still don't know how her spirit could travel, so Sam goes to the factory to talk to some of the employees. And he talks to a lot of different people. I kind of liked that little montage. He's interviewing different employees at the factory. But then he starts talking to this one guy with long hair and a nasty mustache. And he acts so suspicious
Yeah, no, he's not trying to hide it at all.
at all. He's just, it's the fucking worst. Like Sam asks if he knew Rose, and he's like, maybe. And he shows him a picture of her and he's like, "Yeah, I mean, I think I saw her around." Like, you fucking suck. So, Sam tells him straight up. He's like, "You seem nervous." And the guy says, "Well, yeah, the guys that died were my friends. So, of course I would be upset." And Sam goes, "I didn't say upset. I said nervous."
Like, gotcha.
Ba-bam.
Okay,
Uh,
so I did want to actually talk about this actor for
okay.
a second because he came out in this movie that I saw like when it first came out on DVD. Like I remember renting it from Blockbuster like every week. I
Stop it. What an
it
awesome
was
memory.
it was a really bad movie, but I had such a crush on him, and he did not look like a meth head slash pervert in the
Pedo.
movie. Um, Let me actually
He
send
looks
a
familiar to me.
he's come out in a few other things, like he came out in Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back at like a brief cameo. Some other stuff too. So I think he's done other work, but oh god damn it, where did I save this picture so I could send it to you? Cuz
I don't know.
it's
I'm gonna
just
look him up though. Let me see. Jake Richardson. Oh, he's cute
yes,
now, and he's got a mustache now, but I'm not mad about it.
but it's not like creepy.
Yeah. Let me see.
Wait, okay. Okay, I just sent a picture to you from the movie.
Of course you had a crush on him.
Can you describe for the listeners what you're seeing?
I would be happy to. Okay, so this goth kid in a sleeveless black shirt with a spike necklace and ball chain necklace. Um, lip ring on the lower lip.
The lip ring is important.
That's really, yeah, I could see how that's crucial. And gelled hair that sort of like comes down the front in like spikes. And maybe eyeliner. There might be some eyeliner happening.
I think there's definitely eyeliner happening.
That's so your type.
I know. So yeah, I just thought he was the hottest thing on this planet. The movie is called Hangman's Curse, and it's a really bad horror movie where they think oh my god, it's so cute. It's like this family that that travels around and are ghost hunters, and they go to this high school that's supposedly haunted, but it turns out that it's not haunted. There are just a bunch of spiders that are traveling with like chemicals that are making people hallucinate. Something like
What
that.
a weird twist.
It's a strange twist. And Leidenmeester, who plays Blair Waldorf, also comes out in it before she was Blair Waldorf. So yeah,
Yeah, okay, okay.
check it out.
Wow, that's so funny. I'm looking at it on
Or
IMDb.
not. Or not.
I love that.
So I just came upon another still where, everything has been resolved in the movie. And now this guy, like the outcome at the very end of the movie is that he doesn't dress like this anymore. And he's like a well adjusted teenager.
Stop. And you were like, boo.
Boo. I like the other one better.
That's
Uh,
funny. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
of course.
And
Yeah,
it
I had
makes
to
me like
share.
him a little better because, I mean, I think he's probably familiar to me from, I don't know, maybe Clerks, but obviously, I didn't like him in this role.
Yeah, no, he wasn't a likable character anyway.
No, yeah, whoever would have played this character, it was doomed to be unlikable.
Right.
Um, so let's see here. Sam obviously knows that this guy's shady AF. So he gives him his card and he says, I tell you what, if you think of anything, call me. And he's just like, yeah, okay. And leaves. And then we cut over to Dean and he shows up at Lisa's door and she answers the door looking beautiful. She is
Mhm.
all dressed up, her hair is done, and she's obviously getting ready to go out. And she's like, what are you doing here?
Yeah. I was completely expecting her to look disheveled and just like she needs a shower.
Yeah.
Um,
I
but
thought
no,
Ben was going to
she
answer.
oh yeah. Yeah, that should that also. But no, she looked amazing.
Yeah. She's got it going on. And suddenly Dean realizes what's happened and he says, we've been parent trapped. And he tells her that Ben called him, with a cry for help. And she's like, why would he do that? And Dean's like, are you going on a date? And so there's our answer. And
Yeah.
then they go into the kitchen. Dean pops open a beer and they start talking. And he asks her who the guy is. And she tells him that his name is Matt and he's a doctor. And Dean kind of starts giving her a hard time, like, oh, a doctor. And she's like, really? I called you 6 times. So, what? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm mad at Dean.
I know. Me too. Because I don't know. Maybe he feels like he's sparing her or something.
I mean, obviously, it's this whole like, well, we don't really get an answer. I think I'm putting like words in his mouth, but I can just imagine that it's like, no, I can't hurt
Mm.
you. I can't
Hmm.
endanger you, blah, 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 that sort of thing.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think she's the best he's ever going to
Yeah. I mean, we,
get.
oh, she is so goddamn beautiful. I
Mhm.
love her so much.
And so
Yeah.
fucking cool.
Yes, she's the best. Like, come
Yeah.
on, Dean, you're really ruining something great.
Yeah. His head's up his ass for sure. Um, and so then he tells her that he's like, I dropped everything when Ben called to come here. So if you're wondering if I care. And then Ben walks in and he tries to kind of butt in and speak, and they both tell him to go to his room at the same time. And he's like, okay. So he walks out and goes to his room. And then Lisa tells Dean that she knows what she wants, but she can't have it. Every time her phone rings, she thinks that there's a tiny chance that it's Dean, but there's a big chance that it's Sam calling to tell her that he's dead. And she says that she keeps getting to a place where she thinks she's okay, but then he shows up at her door again. So, like, what is he trying to do? Um, she says she's trying to get over him. And then she asks him what he wants from them. Like, what do you want from us, Dean? And he can't answer, which was interesting. Um, I don't know. I wonder what he does want. I don't think he knows.
Yeah, I I mean, obviously like I understand why he's kept away. It's just more that he should have provided some sort of explanation to her. I mean, there is a lot going on. Sam did not have a soul. Um, and even though he figured that out after the fact, it's like, okay, but Sam, there was still some weird stuff going on with him. There was still some weird things going on with creatures and all that sort of thing that Dean
Mhm.
needed to focus on. So, you know, I just feel like she would have understood.
Right. We
And
really struggled with that, like, especially when he got turned into a vampire. Just fucking tell her. She knows that vampires exist and what's happening.
yeah,
Why can't you tell her about this? What's the problem?
exactly. So it
What's the
just it
problem, Dean? Why
doesn't.
can't you just tell her that you got turned into a vampire?
Well, and it just goes back to communication. Like he just does not want to communicate properly.
Yeah. Well, as my mother says, men are not good communicators.
Nope.
Guys, you got to talk to us.
Yeah, yeah. I think in this case it's
Applicable.
it's much, yeah, much needed.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. The shady guy with the mustache, his name was Johnny, from the factory. We see him going through. I couldn't really tell where this was, if he was in the factory or somewhere else, but he's on the phone and he's telling someone that he's freaking out because the feds are onto them. And he says, "Why? Why am I freaking out? Because those guys are dead." And then he suddenly gets a cut on his forehead and he breathes out, and we can see his breath like it's cold. And then he looks up, and there's a mannequin standing in front of him, and suddenly Sam grabs his shoulder and tells him to come on, and he saves his ass. Um,
Yeah. He was totally dead.
he was totally dead. You were like seconds away from dying. So Sam puts him in a room and puts salt all around the windows and the doors. And Sam's like, "You're lucky that you were the most suspicious interview of all time."
Yup,
It
because he really was ridiculous.
was so funny. And he tells him that Rose is back. And Johnny's like, "What are you talking about?" And he says, if, let me see. Oh, he tells Johnny, "You're going to die if you don't tell me what happened to Rose. That's the deal." And so he finally convinces him, and Johnny tells Sam all about this prank that they played. So we kind of cut back and forth a little bit, but mainly we're seeing flashbacks of what happened. And so Johnny tells him that him and the other guys who worked at the factory led Rose on, and they pretended that she had a secret admirer. He says that he doesn't think that the girl had ever been asked out in her life. Basically, they knew she was an easy target, which is, I don't, some level of shitty I can't describe.
Yeah.
And they left her a note in her locker asking her to meet up, like as the secret admirer. And so she dressed up and went to this shabby apartment, which we've definitely seen before, by the way, at least
It
a
does
couple
look
of
very
times.
familiar. Yeah, it looks like one of their motel rooms or yeah, they're definitely reusing lots of sets now.
Hmm. And she walks into the apartment and sees someone sitting at the table, and she puts her hand on his shoulder. And after she touches it, it's obviously a mannequin, and it falls off the chair and the wig falls off. And then the guys jump out of like the pantry and start laughing at her. And Johnny says, "It was mean, but you know how guys are when they get together. They act like jackasses."
Mm.
Really? Is that
It
really what
was
guys are like when they get together? Or are these just like terrible people? This isn't guys.
yeah. And then also like it was just his way of trying to come up with some sort of excuse and it's
Ugh.
like,
Yeah,
well,
to just like blow it off.
there's there's no excuse for this at all.
Yeah. So then in the flashback, we see them laughing at her, and Rose starts crying. And she tells them to go to hell. And I was like, yeah, you tell them.
Mhm.
But then the janitor who we had seen from the school, he grabs her arm and he's like, Rose, it was just a joke. And she pulls herself away from him and turns to leave. But as she does that, she falls and hits her head on the coffee table and dies. And Johnny pulls his phone out to start calling the cops, but the janitor stops him and he's like, "We can't call the cops. We lured her here and I grabbed her. That's I don't remember what he said, manslaughter too or whatever."
Yeah, something like that.
Basically, you fucked. Um and so he keeps him from calling the cops and he said that the only thing that they can do is to bury her body. So they take her body out into the woods and they buried her. And that was it.
Yeah, it's such a gross like gross actions and things like that. It, it is why it reminded me of yellow fever and our reaction to that, because we just were kind of like grossed out by all of that as well, and what had
Mhm.
happened to Luther, and then also to the woman in Luther. I mean, the woman in Luther, the woman in yellow fever
Yeah.
who had died. Um, so yeah, I mean, it it's just an
Yeah,
ugly situation.
it felt the same level of like embarrassing and immoral.
Mhm.
Um cuz it's just bad people doing bad things to good people. And
Yeah.
there's no like justice there. There's no reasoning or
Well, and literally, like, not to jump ahead of ourselves here, but we don't get any justice in this episode.
no. Yeah. There's That's exactly right. There's nothing good that comes from this. It doesn't feel good at the end. And so Sam's pretty disgusted too. The guy Johnny's like, I didn't kill her, kind of defensive. And Sam says, I love this. Look me in the eyes and tell me none of it's on you. Shit.
That's right.
You were a part of this. So then Sam says, but I'm not saying you deserve to die. So I'll help you. So Johnny tells Sam where she's buried so he can go and burn her body to try to release her spirit. Then Sam leaves, and as he's leaving, Johnny whines about having to stay in that room. He's like, I just have to wait here. It's like, shut the fuck up. You're welcome.
Y- Yeah, he's such an annoying character. It's just like the worst person ever.
Uh, so back with Lisa and Dean, he goes upstairs to Ben's room to talk to him. And Ben's playing a game on like a little handheld. It's probably um, like a fuck. What's that called? The little PlayStation
Uh,
handheld game.
the I don't remember what it was. Was
Fuck.
it like a Game Boy, or was it a PSP, or
PSP.
okay.
Probably
Yeah.
like a PSP. Because Game Boy was Nintendo, and I was like, no, it's
Yeah.
not a Game Boy. What is it?
Oh,
So
yes. I remember when the PSP came out. It
those were
was
badass. My brother had one.
I think my brother had one too, but it was just so heavy.
It was really
Those
heavy.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah, I need to be careful not to play it like, like when you're laying with your phone on your bed.
Exactly.
I actually hit my face last week. It fell on my fucking mouth and it hurt.
Yeah, that's definitely happened to me as well.
So stupid. It makes you feel so dumb. So Dean's looking over Ben's shoulder playing this game, and he's like, "That's ridiculous. Plants can't kill zombies." I thought that was cute.
Is okay, so this is also another damn, like what is it with this episode and just like putting us in 20, what is it, 2011 or whatever.
Yeah,
Um
yeah.
yeah, Plants
hardcore.
vs. Zombies. I was obsessed when that first came out. I think I passed the entire thing like immediately. And I still play it. I play Plants vs. Zombies 2 specifically. Um it's so good. It's just
That's
a fun
cute.
game. Yeah.
It was really fun. It was a cute game.
Yeah.
So Ben tells Dean that this is the third date that Lisa is going on with this guy. And he's like, I watch TV. I know what that means. Poor thing. So Ben starts begging Dean to come home, but Dean says he can't. And he's like, can't or won't? And he's like, both. And so then Ben starts thinking, like, okay, so now you hate mom? And Dean's like, what? No. And he's like, so you hate me. I did something wrong. And this was really interesting. I felt like this was actually some really good writing here because we know that this is something that kids do. When there's like disruption in the home, mom and dad aren't getting along, kids have this uncanny uh, talent for making for being guilty, for thinking that it's their fault. Um, and Dean immediately stops him and he says, absolutely not. You know, this is not about you. It's not because of you. And makes that very clear. And Dean says, just because you love someone doesn't mean you should stick around and screw up their life. He says that his job turns him into someone who can't sit at their dinner table. And he's afraid that Ben would end up like him. And then Ben says, why do you say that like you're so bad? I
Yeah.
love this conversation. It just really shows us, like, you know, obviously we assume and we've seen maybe little bits and pieces of how close they all got and how much they care about each other and how much Dean means to Ben. But
Mhm.
this conversation really tells us, like, he came to see him as dad.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like it didn't, there was probably no uh like coaxing of that, how you get that in like TV shows as well and movies and stuff where it's like the stepdad that's coming in has to like kind of
Mm,
prove himself and stuff. But no, I feel like Dean just filled that role the way he only could and made Ben feel super comfortable and and just fit into that family really perfectly, which is why it just makes it so difficult
yeah.
for Dean to then be like, "Oh no, I can't do this. I can't be in this family anymore."
Right. Because you're just going to leave Ben like that too. I don't know.
Yeah.
And Ben obviously looks up to him and thinks a lot of him. Probably more than he thinks about himself, right? Um
Right.
and so Dean tells Ben, you know, you can choose to be whatever you want now. Um and then Ben gets mad and he calls him a liar and Dean's like, "Excuse me?" And Ben says, "You say that family is so important, but what do you call people who love you even when you're a dick? You know you're walking out on your family, right?" Ugh. So he just cuts right to the core, and it looks like Dean's like trying to hold back tears, and he can't answer. He can't say anything.
Yeah. Well, it's a really good point that Ben makes.
Totally. And yeah, that's tough. So we go back over to Sam. He has found Rose's body, and he throws some lighter fluid in there and burns her body. And then he calls Johnny to tell him that he's safe and, quote, it's over. And he tells him, you know, think of this as a new beginning. You have all kinds of chances not to be a jackass. So Sam's like pissed at him, but he's like, I guess you're welcome. You're alive. Don't fuck it up.
Right.
And so
Well,
then I know.
I mean, this next part, like Just I'm
Ooh.
sorry. This guy's a real jackass. Like what the hell? This guy.
I
Ugh.
don't know. It's so disgusting. So Dean is driving back to Sam, and while he's driving, we get this really great scene of flashbacks of all of the times that Dean showed up at Lisa's door, and every time she just opens the door in like this flurry, and her hair's like blowing in the wind, and she's like fucking gorgeous.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Every single
amazing.
time. And then we get flashbacks just to him, living with them and all of the love that they shared and how cute they were. And then little baby Ben, we get flashbacks all the way back to the first episode where we met Ben and Lisa and we suspected that
Mm.
Ben might be Dean's kid. And he was so cute. And we just see all of their time together, and it's clearly eating Dean up. He's just kind of mulling it all over and having a tough time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think he's probably realizing, I mean, hopefully that he's making a big mistake and
mhm.
would like to, you know, go
Yeah.
back, figure it out.
I was kind of half expecting at the end of those flashbacks, for him to turn the car around.
Yeah, that would have been nice.
Yeah,
I
I know. We just want a love story.
know. We can have it.
So, Isabel and her friends are going into a bar called McOwen's. And they walk inside, and then it's just like a tiny little bar in this bigger building. And then we see Johnny pulling up in his car, and he gets out and goes into the door next to McOwen's, and it leads up to his apartment. So he's like really close by. And he walks into his apartment and sits down on the bed, and he tells someone that they're leaving. He says he just wants to move on with their lives. And then the camera pans over and we see that he's talking to a fucking mannequin. Also, he calls her Jen. So her name is Jen.
Yeah, she's like a sex doll.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of Lars and the real girl,
Yeah. Oh.
some that's exactly what we're seeing. It's just so odd. Like this, yeah, this guy's a fucking creep. Oh god.
He is a fucking creep. And he's like, he says something like, I just want, you know that I love you. Or something. Oh.
Yeah, and I think the doll just like turns around or
Yeah.
something and
So then it like comes to life and like turns and looks at him. Its eyes are really creepy and it gives him this like kind of evil smile and he looks like shocked. And then surprise surprise, next scene Sam is walking into Johnny's apartment where it's a crime scene and he's dead. And Sam looks over and sees the sex doll and he's like, "Oh shit." So he calls Dean and tells him that he's going back to Isabel's because it's not over. So at Isabel's, Sam is going through the small box of Rose's things that she still has. There isn't much there. And he looks over, and on the table, he sees some chemistry books. And he asks Isabel if she's in school. And she's like, "Oh, yeah, at Great Falls." And he's like, "Okay, so you were at the school and the factory last week." And she's like, "Yeah." And he guesses that she went into that bar, McOwen's, the night before next to Johnny's apartment. And she's like, "Well, yeah, everybody from the factory goes there." So then he realizes that she's at the center of it all. And he says, "This is all about you." And she's like, "Wait a second, you think I did this?" And he's like, "No, no, but you're at the center of it." And so he asks her what she has of roses that she always carries with her. And he's kind of starting to freak her out because she's like, I don't know what you're fucking talking about. He's like, a baby tooth, a ring, anything, and she's like, what is this about? But then this like moment of
I'm sorry, I'm
realization.
laughing because it's like this. Ugh, God, it takes her way too long to get to this
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, totally.
Ah.
And so she eventually realizes that she has one of Rose's kidneys. Oh.
Oh, that might be it. That might be what you're talking about as far as having something of hers.
Yeah. So then Sam kind of makes her go with him to meet up with Dean. And Sam and Dean are discussing their options. Once they meet up, they get out of the car, but Isabel is still kind of hanging back. And so Sam and Dean by themselves are just discussing their options for how to handle this because, they can't kill Isabel. Um, and so they end up thinking like, okay, we might need to, use some hoodoo. And so Isabel has come over and heard that. And she's like, huh, what? Voodoo? What are y'all talking about? And so Sam kind of tries to explain, but then suddenly the Impala starts up all on its own and the lights are on, the engine is roaring. And they're like, oh no, no, no. And Dean's like, what? She possesses sex dolls. This isn't a sex doll. And right as he says that, the engine's like, vroom, and just like roars. It's like, oh God.
Oh, yeah. Not very good.
No.
I did like Dean being like, actually it's hoodoo, not voodoo. Like all
Yeah.
hoity toity about it.
Actually, that was pretty good. There's a difference. So the Impala is angry and it starts chasing Dean down and all around the parking lot. And he's just running away. And here's where we get a really good son of a bitch. Son of a bitch! So then Dean has to make the hard decision to stop in front of a building and wait until the Impala got close and jump out of the way so that it would crash into the building. So sad.
Poor
When he does
baby.
it too, I know he's like, I'm so sorry, baby. Don't want to have to do it. But the Impala crashes and Dean barely makes it out. Sam runs over to make sure that he's okay. And Dean's like, yeah, are you guys okay? And Sam's like, yeah. And they turn to Isabel and she starts to say, yeah, I'm okay. And then like blood pours out of her mouth. And the camera pans down and there's a huge shard of glass that's sticking out of her stomach, and I think it's probably like in her kidney. And then Rose appears in front of all of them and she looks at Isabel and apologizes and she says, I didn't mean for this. And then Isabel just dies and Rose's ghost goes up in flames with that effect that we've seen whenever they've been let go, essentially.
Right. Yeah. So, ugh.
Okay, so is this where we get to poke holes? Because I'm confused.
Uh,
Are you
yeah,
confused?
yeah. I mean, I was confused watching it. Yes, talking about it, I'm a little like, okay, I guess that's why it all fits together, but I just don't like it.
But how did the glass get in her? I don't understand.
Oh, okay, like the specifics of that. I don't
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know.
I felt lost.
It was very sudden. It did okay, so that was also where things didn't really make sense. It was kind of like that one episode that we had where it's like where like the demons appear all of a sudden, grab the alpha vampire, and the next second
Yeah.
they're like gone.
Yes. Yes, that's
It
how
was
I
sort of like
felt.
that. Mhm.
Because I felt like I missed something. And I also felt with this one like there could have been a couple of different things that happened or a few. Like I didn't know if like Isabel had suddenly understood and she did it to herself, or if Rose, excuse me, if Rose was pissed off and just wanted it to end and so she killed her, or if it was an accident when the Impala crashed. Like I don't know how it happened.
Yeah, me neither. I it it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah, it does not make a lot of sense, that like, the technicalities of it all, but also, like, the plot. I mean, the plot does make sense to me. They explain it all, but it it just felt, like, weird. Like, I thought we figured this out. I thought it
Mhm.
was the girl, the ghost, and then now you're all of a sudden throwing in this chick who has a kidney, and we're not even gonna waste time actually trying to save her life. We're just gonna kill her off and call it a day.
Yeah. And also, like, how does that actually, I mean, maybe that was the point, but that doesn't resolve anything. Like, how, because Rose, like her ghost, it almost seemed like that's what she wanted or something. I mean, she says, I didn't, also that weird line, I didn't mean for this.
Right, yeah, like, what didn't you mean for? What does that
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
Yeah, I think yeah, you just said something a second ago that is a good point. It didn't resolve anything. You're right. So instead of actually resolving any issues that Rose has as a ghost, and allowing her to peacefully move on to the next plane of existence or whatever, it's just like, okay, well, let's just kill your ties to this earth and we're good. We're square.
Yeah, right. It's really
And again,
abrupt.
that is another way where it felt like yellow fever because that's a big issue that we had where we were like, Luther is a victim. He,
Yeah.
yes, he's really scary and stuff, but, and angry, but like rightfully so. And
Uh-huh.
can't you, we should be helping him rather than trying to continue to hurt him. So
Yes.
the same thing with Rose.
Ugh. Yes.
Mhm.
It's not I don't know. I mean, I think, they go on in this last scene, Sam and Dean are talking about it and neither of them feel good about it either. So, we're openly acknowledging in this episode that it was a shitty ending to this case. But I like what was the point of that?
Mhm.
You know? Because I think what came out of it was like something that we've already seen before. I mean, I don't know. Let me just go through this last scene because there was like one good line I think that came out of it, but
Okay.
I don't I don't know how much it, you know,
Helps the episode.
yeah, makes up for it. And also this is another scene I made a note about it where it was kind of weird like we cut to this scene in Bobby's junkyard where Dean is fixing up the Impala, but we're like really far panned out, and we see Sam like walking across the junkyard over to Dean, and there's this kind of weird music playing that's like I don't know a mix between like movie score and like country song, and it plays for a really long time, and it's again really dragged out. Like we're just watching this for a pretty long time,
Yeah,
which is strange.
it's interesting. Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then it, zeroes in on Dean working on the Impala, and thankfully she's going to be okay. It's not the damage isn't too bad. And he gets up, and Dean's like, "What did we do here?" And Sam's like, "Look, I'm not putting it in the win column either." Uh, Dean says, "All we did was kill an innocent girl, and I've got a heartbroken kid and a pissed off woman." And so he just feels like everything that they do is a mess. And so Sam reminds him that they save lives sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. And he says, it's not all bad. Satan has left the building and Sam has his soul back. So those are a couple of pretty big wins. And he says, I never thanked you for that, did I? And Dean's like, no, but, you would have done the same for me. So don't worry about it. And he says, no, well, thank you. And he tells Dean that they should just keep swinging and keep their heads down. And hopefully they win more than they lose. And then he says to Dean, for what it's worth, I've got your back. And so I felt like this was kind of the point of that conversation, because in a past episode where Sam didn't have his soul, in the one where with what's her face, the goddess of truth, where everybody has to tell the truth and Dean has that on him.
Yes.
You remember.
Uh-huh.
And so Sam says, I've got your back, and we can tell that he's lying.
Yeah. Yeah, he's being a really just fake smiley and everything, and you're right. Yeah, that's a good observation. It is such a different juxtaposition between that Sam and
Right.
this Sam.
Yeah, because this time we believe him.
Yeah.
Um, so like I get that. That's a good thing to have this old Sam back, and I don't know, maybe a little reminder of the fact that their job is, I don't know, hard, but they need to keep going. But we've gotten that lesson before. I don't know. Was it worth it?
I don't know. They seem like not beat up enough about the fact that this innocent girl died on their watch.
Yeah.
I mean, they've been through so much. They've done so much. They've protected people from way worse things than a moving vehicle.
Right.
Um it's insane to me that that happened, and that they're totally like cool that especially Sam, that he's talking so optimistically after that, and he's not like I mean, I don't know. It's strange.
No, I
It
think that's
felt
fair. I hadn't really thought about that, but and because they're like a little beat up about it, but but not that much.
yeah, yeah, just kind of a little bit.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I don't either. I think I still feel pretty much the same way as I did when we first started talking about it, but maybe even more so. Like I still really loved all the parts with Dean, Lisa, and Ben, but everything else was just so unnecessary.
Yeah, totally. It is odd because there is such great stuff from that conversation with Lisa and Ben, especially the Ben part, but I don't think I don't think that there's enough to justify like any higher than we would give it if it didn't have all of that, you know?
Yes. And the word I was trying to think of earlier is redeem. It doesn't redeem it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's a good way to put it. I think it doesn't outweigh how it would be without that stuff.
Right.
Hmm. Okay, so ranking. I don't know. What are you thinking?
I need to take a look.
Yellow fever is down at 91.
Yeah, I was gonna go straight there as well and see where is that. I I like Yellow Fever better than this one. I know you hated that one.
I fucking hated that episode.
um
I hated it more than this one. But
wow, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but maybe the okay, maybe I'll swallow my words from 5 minutes ago that maybe it is the Dean and Lisa stuff that kind of redeems it a little bit better. And I guess like the Luther stuff, like you hate that worse than like the Rose stuff.
Yes, because he was developmentally disabled.
Yeah.
That's super fucked up. Like you don't touch that.
Yeah. Okay.
But also, it could literally just be like 90 or 92. you know? Since we've got yellow fever at 91, and I'm looking at some of the other ones around here, and like right above that, they're not that bad.
No, yeah.
Because, like, I believe the children are our future is 90, all dogs go to heaven, 89, playthings, 88. Like, those weren't great, but there wasn't anything about them that I hated, I don't think. Well,
Yeah, I agree. I loved Playthings actually. I really enjoyed that one.
mhm.
Um, I believe the children are our future. I mean, I think we were like really disappointed with that one, but not necessarily like totally hating it.
Well, okay, here's another thing too. I will say the ones below yellow fever, I think I just really hated yellow fever. Like, I think that yellow fever should be lower than it is right now.
What?
So maybe
Wow.
I'm gonna go hard on it. So maybe that shouldn't be like what to measure it against here. Because even some of these other ones, like I don't know, Dead Man's Blood, Provenance, Shadow, again, like they weren't great, but I don't hate those.
Yeah, we all know Dead in the Water is your favorite episode.
Ever. Number
um,
one. And it's at 98 right now.
God, that is so strange.
How did we do that?
I don't I mean, I think I made a case for yellow fever. I like it. I
Girl, you
think
should be a fucking lawyer.
I mean, I hate I'm trying to
You
remember our
won that
conversation
case.
about that, but, yeah, I think we compromised there, but,
Sure.
yeah, because I totally agree with you. Like, the parts of yellow fever that we both hate, I really, really hate it. But there were some really great moments. I think that's why.
Sure.
There were
Yeah.
some really comedic great moments in that one, and I think that's why it was put placed there. But if we are not taking yellow fever into account and just like blah,
Mm-hmm.
like not even looking at it, um I do agree with you. Like I might place this one maybe below like Provenance. I don't know, maybe even lower,
I
honestly.
know.
Like maybe below Dead in the Water.
Yeah. And Skin is 99. I don't remember hating that one.
I really like Skin too.
This is weird. I mean, really,
I mean, I love Something Wicked also. That's a good
yeah.
one.
I mean, really, I'm kind of down here with like children shouldn't play with dead things and everybody loves a clown. Is that really bad? Or maybe Folsom Prison Blues. Is it 104?
Wow. Okay.
there wasn't much to redeem this episode.
No, it's really not great. I might put it above bedtime stories,
Okay. Yeah.
but at Fallen Idols, that's where we can agree on it. I prefer Fallen Idols and that ridiculous how no matter how ridiculous it was more entertaining. I
Remind
felt
me
like
what happens in that one. That was
oh,
just
that's
last
the one
season, but
where Lincoln and
that's all you had to say. Okay,
oh, and
okay.
then I was gonna say where Sam says that his idol is Gandhi.
By the way, I'm
Oh my
with you. That one
gosh.
was more entertaining too, for sure. It was better.
Mhm.
Okay. I think I'm okay with putting this anywhere below Fallen Idols then.
Okay, yeah, I think that's for me. That's where I would go.
Okay. I'm satisfied with that. Wow, how many episodes have we gone through? 118. That's crazy.
Yeah. Wait, 118.
Yeah.
What? Where are you getting that number?
Scroll down.
Oh.
That sounded really condescending. I didn't mean it like that.
No, you should have said it that way because yeah. Okay, there we
Uh,
go. I scroll down and I see it now.
okay, great. So cool. Okay, so where did it go? Mannequin 3, The Reckoning, is going in as the number 102. And this one's going in the trunk. Zowie.
Yeah, man. Not a great episode, but sandwiched in between, I think, two great episodes because the next episode is The French Mistake. I've been talking a lot about it, I've been mentioning it. So hopefully it lives up to the hype. Um,
Yeah, I'm
but yeah, that's
excited.
going to be our next episode. And also, I think the episode that's going to be like your guys' little Christmas present because it's going to drop right before Christmas Eve. And I think it's going to be uh the last episode of the year where we were talking a little bit about um taking our usual like end of the year break. So yeah, it's going to be a good one to leave off though.
Yes. Yeah, and not too long. We'll just be gone for maybe a few weeks. Um, but yeah, that will be the one before our holiday, and may or may not have a guest. TBD.
Yeah, we'll see if they accept our invite. Should be
um,
fun.
yes, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. And y'all should know where to find us by now. But if you need a refresher or at least a jumping off point, visit our blog at www.highwaytohellpodcast.com. Highway is HWY. And we've got our episodes on there. As always, leave us a review if you haven't already. It means a lot to us. So until next time, we will see you on the highway to hell. Bye.
Bye.